China's economic footprint in the Maldives is growing, with major infrastructure investments that promise to boost tourism and development on the islands. And they're also raising concerns about the Indian Ocean island's ability to repay its mounting foreign debt. Well, CNA's Afifah Ariffin has this report.
A $200 million symbol of cooperation. Completed in 2018, this engineering feat reflects the size and scale of Chinese investments in the Maldives. The Sinamale Bridge, also known as the China-Maldives Friendship Bridge, is the country's first cross-sea link. Now, the 1.39-kilometer bridge connects the capital Male, where I am, to the neighboring Hulu Male, where the international airport is. The bridge is also China's flagship infrastructure project in the country as part of the Belt and Road Initiative. The Maldives joined the initiative in 2014 after a visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping, the second South Asian nation after Sri Lanka to formally endorse what's known in China as One Belt, One Road. But as the Asian juggernaut's presence on the islands becomes increasingly evident, there's growing concern about the Maldives' reliance on China. In the capital Male, Chinese investments ranging from airports, official buildings, housing projects and luxury resorts are paving the way for an economic transformation.
In Maldives' situation, their infrastructure projects would bring in tourism, and it would boost their tourism industry, which they are very, very dependent on.
But these investments come at a cost. Official data shows the Maldives has raked up more than $4 billion in foreign debt, and $1.5 billion, nearly 40%, is owed to China, its biggest lender. The island economy is struggling to generate enough revenue for its own expenses, and the International Monetary Fund has warned the Maldives of looming debt distress, while international credit ratings firm Fitch downgraded the country to junk rating in June.
That concern is China now looking at Maldives as one of the options where it can, quote unquote, dump a lot of its excess capacity into infrastructure projects. So I think these are concerns that will remain for some time. The revenues have not started materializing. The investment returns have not started flowing. Infrastructure investments, as it is, take time to deliver returns. The question is, for how long?
What's more, a stalled China-Maldives free trade deal may eliminate customs duties on Chinese exports to the islands, a key revenue source, if the deal is revived by recently elected President Mohammad Muizzu. The president has been a strong supporter of China, winning office on an India-out campaign in 2023. He made China his first state visit abroad as president in January, signing 20 agreements in Beijing, including economic and military partnerships.
When China launched its Belt and Road initiatives, there are at least two motivating factors. Number one is indeed to extend its trade routes with not only surrounding countries, but with countries further ashore, economically expanding its influence. But at the same time, many of these countries are also situated at very strategic geographic locations.
The Maldives sits adjacent to vital waterways in the Indian Ocean, which see about two-thirds of the world's oil shipments and nearly all of China's oil supplies from the Gulf. This tiny nation, consisting of about 1,192 islands, has become a focal point for China, India, and even the US. One analyst says Chinese influence in the Maldives is benign, and the geopolitical tussle is a US invention.
There's a narrative out there that somehow China is doing evil plotting. In actuality, from Beijing's point of view, it's the U.S. and its desire to contain China, which is causing a lot of the issues. There isn't a strategic interest, except not forcing it into the hands of the United States or having it being used. You have AUKUS and you have the Quad, and they're very intent on containing China. China wants to have friendly relations, and they also want these countries to do well. From Xi's point of view, a shared future for mankind includes trying to help those who are less fortunate, as they have done in China, by eradicating extreme poverty.
As the Maldives navigates its relationships with the superpowers, the government faces a delicate political and economic balancing act. Afifah, Ariffin, CNA, Mali.
So what's the sentiment on the ground? For more on that, we're joined by CNA's correspondent, Afifah Ariffin. Well, thanks for joining us, Afifah. So I'm sure you know there is debate as well as suspicion from the outside about China's major infrastructure investments on the Maldives. Can you just tell us a bit more about that?
Well, China's interest in investing in the Maldives is driven by several strategic, economic, as well as geopolitical factors. For one, the Maldives is situated along key maritime routes in the Indian Ocean, something that we heard in the story earlier. A significant portion of the world's oil shipments and global trade pass through those routes. And so what observers are saying is that controlling or having influence over this region is critical for China to secure its energy supplies, its trade routes, especially as part of the Maritime Silk Road Initiative under the BRI. And so investing in the Maldives will help China create this network of ports and infrastructure that can facilitate smoother trade routes and, of course, economic ties. And additionally, by investing in the Maldives, China can extend its influence in South Asia, in a region where it's competing for dominance against India. We've already seen how the Maldives had asked India to remove its military troops and to replace it with civilian officers. And now the Maldives is potentially having military cooperation with China as well. And so establishing a very strong presence in the Maldives, in the Indian Ocean, can serve as a counterbalance for China against Indian influence in the region.
Well, Afifah, what's interesting is India is the Maldives, traditional partner and supporter because of history and proximity. So what's caused the two sides to drift apart?
Yes, well, traditionally, the Maldives has been a very close ally of India because of its proximity, because of long-standing socio-cultural ties, and it has often relied on India as that security provider and first responder in times of needs. But as we know, in the Maldives, different governments have always had a different foreign policy position, switching between the major powers, India or China. So in the last elections, for example, President Muizzu and his party, they had campaigned on this India Out platform. And what first began as a sort of spat between two neighbors, where Dr. Muizzu had lightly referenced India as a bully of small countries in that region, led to something, as I mentioned earlier, the call for the removal of troops from Maldivian soil. However, in recent months, it does seem that the tensions between the two neighbors have sort of cooled down, and that Dr. Muizzu's administration is recalibrating or rebalancing their foreign relations positions. Dr. Muizzu himself was there at Prime Minister Narendra Modi's swearing-in ceremony. He was seated right beside Mr. Modi at the state banquet after, and that's seen as a strong sign of improving ties between the two countries.
Afifah, I have to say I'm a bit envious of you. You spent 7 whole days in Maldives, but I know you were busy, gathering ground opinions, speaking to the locals there. Give us a sense of the Maldivians themselves. What do they think? Do they even care about geopolitics?
Well, two key things for them. Sovereignty, of course, is very important for them because despite being a tiny island nation, they want to know that their voice matters at the international level. And the other thing that they're concerned about is, of course, development, especially in the capital, Male, and the greater Male area, where many people from the further islands, 1,200 different atolls in the Maldives, are migrating to for job opportunities, better prospects as well. Maldivians in general, they are aware of this power tussle between India and China. It's something that's very pervasive in their domestic political landscape because politicians are usually on either side. And these narratives, whether it's pro-China or pro-India, they feature very heavily in the domestic elections, presidential elections, parliamentary elections. So the ordinary Maldivians are aware. They're also very aware of the loans that the government has taken from both countries over the years. And they have very mixed feelings about this because a lot of them see that, these investments are positive things because powers. They bring in infrastructure, development, job creation, boosting the tourism industry, and they do believe that these projects can modernize the country and improve their standards of living. But right now, the country is not doing well economically. They're a small nation of just 500,000 people with no natural resources to depend on, and they can only truly rely on their traditional economic pillars, tourism, fishing, tax revenue. So people are concerned about the long-term implications of such high level of debt, and they fear that the country may be too dependent on foreign powers, so potentially losing their sovereignty or being unable to repay the debt, leading to economic instability.
Well, it's really been, I really enjoyed the Maldives series that you've brought to us on East Asia tonight. Thanks so very much for your hard work, Afifah Ariffin there, speaking to us from Kuala Lumpur.